Good. Thank you. Good afternoon. First of all, it's a pleasure to be speaking with you here today in this wonderful city. And what I'd like to do for the next 15 minutes or so is talk to you a little bit about the digital transformation and the impact that that's having on future mobility, but not just from a technical standpoint, but also from a human standpoint. And there's no doubt right now, if we look at our industry, we're facing massive disruption. But we're also facing a strange paradox, because today we're selling more vehicles than we've ever sold in our history with a rather traditional business model. But by the same token, we've got to listen to our customer needs, and we've got to start thinking about new and future business models, providing new mobility services and new business products. So massive disruption, and the way we've started to look at this disruption is actually across three converging axes. And the first axis of disruption is all about sustainability and making a better planet for us all to live in. And what we're seeing here is the move away from combustion engines towards electrification, something that we're all very familiar with. But in our company, we're taking this incredibly seriously. We've got an initiative called Roadmap E, and we're hoping by 2025 that a quarter of all of the vehicles that we sell will be electric. So that's nearly 3 million vehicles. And by 2030, we actually want to be able to sell every single product in our portfolio across the group with an electric motor option. So again, this is very, very serious for us. The second trend or axis of disruption is all about digitalization, and this is actually something that's disrupting every industry right now. But where we see it having the biggest impact on us is actually the move away from human-driven vehicles to autonomous driving vehicles. And again, this is going to come much quicker than many people anticipate, and there's estimates that by 2035, perhaps, that this could be a $500 billion industry. And then the third and the final axis of disruption is all to do with the global megatrend of urbanization. As you know, more than 50% of the world's population now is living in large urban cities, and what we're finding is that, especially with millennials, people are working out that they don't need to own an automobile to solve their mobility needs. In fact, why should they, when this would be one of the biggest purchases they make? It sits on the street perhaps for 90% of the time, and in many cases you have to pay for it to sit. And that's why we're seeing all of these new mobility solutions popping up all over the world and disrupting us. So there's no doubt we're facing massive disruption. And the way we're looking at this within our company is something we refer to as the triple D. And this is how we're approaching the digital transformation. And you'll see right in the center, we've got the customer in the center, not the product. So that all starts with the digital customer. And what we mean here is using smart data to actually enable us to have a very personal one-to-one relationship with all of our customers, and then being able to use data to provide them with a seamless customer journey across every single touch point that they engage with. So this is really about merging the online world and the offline world. When we think of digital products, I already said this is really all about the self-driving platform and the need for autonomous vehicles and to develop autonomous vehicles in the very near future. And then finally, we also have to look at our company and look at within ourselves, and digital company really refers to the whole need of two initiatives, something we refer to as Business 4.0, which is actually enabling the company inside the workers to become more digitally proficient and more efficient in how they work. And then also Industry 4.0, which is actually about how we look at our total production facilities and how we can start to digitalize that, things like 3D printing and everything. But really what we need to do is we've got to actually transform our business from what has been very much a brick and mortar industry, so basically moving from an integrated hardware business to, in parallel, to a software and services company. So now, not only do we need the best engineers in the world, but we also need the best software developers and software designers as well. And these two types of organizations need to live together in parallel right now. So I'm sure you're all familiar with this quote. I think it was Mark Andreessen who said it from Netscape, that software is eating the world. But software, it's true, it's taken a pretty good chunk out of the apple. Then we've heard that platforms are starting to eat to the world, and yes, platforms are also pretty hungry, but we think the new guy on the block, the guy with the insatiable appetite right now, is definitely AI. And so what we say right now is that AI is eating the world, and the growth of AI is exponential right now, and something that we can't avoid. I think it's interesting if you look at this continuum, and it's been less than 30 years. Back in the 90s, it was desktop first, and then we started moving to mobile first, and then companies like Google and Facebook to mobile only. And then today we're kind of at AI first, but I mean, I think it's interesting if you think about IBM and Deep Blue, the computer they created not so long ago that was able to successfully defeat Garry Kasparov in a chess match. Then last year, we had AlphaGo that started playing the game Go and was able to comfortably defeat some of the best Go players in the world. And then only last week, we had DeepMinds with AlphaGo Pro or something like that, and that was able to defeat AlphaGo 100 matches to 0, and it only took 72 hours for it to learn how to play. So I mean, that kind of growth is absolutely exponential, and this is what's coming, and this is what we've got to start dealing with in our industry as well. What does it mean in the future? No one's really sure, to be honest, but we've got to make sure it's a good thing and used correctly as well in the future. Next thing I want to talk about is design thinking. I think this is a concept that you're all familiar with, a very customer-centric approach to ideation, solving problems, and this is something that obviously we use as well when we're trying to come up with new ideas. But we've looked at design thinking, and while it's a great approach, we think sometimes it can lack a little bit of empathy. So as we think about our ideation and our design approach, we've actually come up with a build on this and something we refer to as human thinking, which actually puts the human at the center of everything we do. And what we've done is we've actually created then a model that has 8 different filters, and we try to apply each of these filters as we go through our ideation processes. I'll explain each one to you in a little bit of detail. So the first one is all about emotion, and we want to make sure not only are we developing products, but we want to be developing things that people actually enjoy and get pleasure from using. We want to make sure that what we develop is beautiful and really shows that we care about the products that we're delivering. Of course, it needs to be innovative. We're always innovating, but not just innovation for the sake of innovation, but innovation so we can actually help solve people's real-life problems, human problems. We want it to be intelligent, so of course we'll be looking at smart solutions. That's kind of obvious. But we also want to act with integrity and make sure that what we're doing really is the right thing, that we're doing the right thing for the right reasons. We want to make sure what we're doing improves people's lives. We want to make sure that it's actually moving society forward. And finally, on the sustainability front, as I mentioned before, we want to make sure that we're actually helping to preserve the planet with what we do. So this is kind of the filter. What I'll do now is I'll give you an example using Cedric. And Cedric is one of our early prototypes on an autonomous vehicle that we debuted earlier this year at the Geneva Motor Show. And I'll show you how we developed Cedric using this kind of approach. So first of all, there's a little video here, and this is showing the future, not too far away. And you can see here an autonomous world of autonomous vehicles moving smoothly through the city. Here's Cedric. You can see him moving along. And we've tried to create him with that feeling of empathy and showing a bit of emotion as he moves through the streets very smoothly, no stress, no hassle, moving through lights. And as we come to the end, you can see he's got a happy face, which is a little bit of empathy as well. And I think we get a wink out of him at the end as well. But you get the point. So again, trying to be a little bit more human with what we're doing as well. So that's showing perhaps a little bit of emotion. This one, some people question on the idea of beauty. Maybe not everyone wants plants in the back of their vehicle, but these plants, they can be beautiful, but what they're also doing is they're purifying the air in the back of a vehicle as well. So we're providing better oxygen for people to breathe inside the vehicle, and this could be important in cities that have high pollution and things like that. So that's an example on the beauty. When it comes to innovation and human thinking, we did, in our ideation, in our user groups, we started looking at what's the best way for people to summon mobility. And what we found is lots of people have many, many apps on their phones, and then there's others, perhaps from older generations, who are not so comfortable using an app to summon their mobility needs. So what we've developed, and we carry this around in our pocket, is actually a simple solution, which is at the click of a button, people are able to summon a vehicle when they need it, and it will know who you are, where you are, and this is what we're thinking will be easy in the future for anyone to use to summon a vehicle. So we think this is really quite innovative and provides mobility to everybody at the push of a button. I'll talk about that a bit more as well. When we think about intelligence, of course, we're going to have the self-driving system at the heart of these vehicles. That goes without saying. And we're going to have, of course, all the latest technology, all the latest lasers and sensors and computing and AI power within these vehicles. And probably a lot of that technology can easily be found in Israel as well, in Tel Aviv, which is exciting as well. If we look at integrity and we think of the number of road deaths there are each year, millions of people die on the road each year due to drink driving, to taking drugs, to using mobile phones while they're driving. So again, this type of solution can use integrity, and it can actually provide much, much safer environments for people to drive in and reduce the number of accidents and fatalities as well. So that's the integrity part. And then when we think about the life part, I mean, I'm not sure if you realize this, but on average, people spend nearly 40,000 hours in a car during their lifetime. And to be honest, that's not always the most pleasurable, enjoyable time as well. So what we're thinking is, let's try and make the experience inside the vehicle more pleasurable and easier and enjoyable for everyone, whether they just want to relax, whether they want to conduct business, experience media, whatever it is. But this is something that can easily be applied to these vehicles. I think also hugely important is today there's many people that actually don't have access to mobility, and it's very difficult for them to get from A to B. So people who are physically impaired, people that are perhaps blind, again, by using this type of approach, we're able to provide now mobility to anyone who needs it, which is fantastic if you think about it, for all those people that are unable to move from their homes. This is again to do with sustainability, and this could be a street anywhere in the world. In Tel Aviv, you look at many streets, there's loads and loads of cars on the streets, like I said. They sit there for most of the day. But as we come into this autonomous driving mode, perhaps we'll see something that is more akin to this. Vehicles will be moving around the city on demand when people need them, and when they need to be stationary and parked, then they can be set and parked in specific locations, perhaps not directly in the city center. And this is all quite doable, using algorithms to predict where vehicles need to be, at what time, during the busy hours, etc. And just to illustrate this again, this is actually a map of Houston, downtown Houston. And what we've done is we've actually mapped all the parking spaces that are around Houston. And you can see how much of the city these are actually taking up, how much wasted space this potentially is. And if we were able to apply the logic that I just mentioned, look what we could do. I mean, we could turn all of those empty parking structures into green spaces inside the city, again, contributing to a better environment. And this is all possible to do. So if I think about what mobility is for us and what our vision is, it's what I said before. What we're thinking is mobility for all at the push of a button. And that's really our vision for the future and where we want to get to. And we think we're well positioned to be able to deliver this across the group, whether it's through passenger vehicles, through heavy goods and trucks vehicles. These will also become autonomous, probably smaller in the future, with more of them running around, through buses, through the vehicles like Cedric, and eventually we'll start to get to personalized autonomous vehicles, where people may want to own one of these as well and personalize it and customize it and perhaps make it more luxurious for themselves. So that's what we're looking to do. Obviously, to be successful, we've got to make sure that we're able to deliver still the best customer experience. We're going to certainly have to take some bold decisions in our company to be able to do this, because this really is moving into a new space. And we need to make sure that we've got the right culture and leadership in our organization to be able to do this. This is kind of how we're set up around the world to do this. So we've started creating future centers around the world. We've got one on the West Coast in California, in Silicon Valley. We have a future center in Berlin. We have another one in Beijing. We're thinking about one in Africa. And we're also very serious about creating some kind of campus potentially here in Tel Aviv as well, so we can bring all our brands together and start to think. We've got to. Yeah, no, there's no doubt we need to be here. It's obvious. So, I think we're all here for many of the same reasons, and we believe, we're the generation that is here today that can start to reinvent the automobile and the future of mobility. So with that, thank you very much.